Good morning, Roots and Resilience podcast family. I'm saying morning because it is morning as we record, but good afternoon, good evening, or good night in true Truman Show style, if that's when you happen to listen. It's good to be back today. Mandie, it's good to be back.
It's good to be back. We're definitely in that phase where every day kind of merges into another one. It's like
Yeah,
Flammarion Day.
that's the day. That is the day of the week that it actually is today, yes.
I don't actually know any of my days of the week anymore. Um, Joys of summer holidays. Yay!
Yay!
This too shall pass, as somebody else said.
Somebody else in a book
See, I'm
somewhere.
so away with it. I don't even know what day of the week it is or who said what. But I'm glad that we're here because I know that spending the next half an hour, just over half an hour with you will really ground me and focus me. And I will feel as if I've unburdened myself of my woes, Laura, because that's how I always feel when I speak with you. And I thank you for that.
You are more than welcome. It's a cleansing process, right? It's a cleansing space to be in.
It is.
Mandie, we are talking today about
We
techno
are.
stuff, not the 90s rave as we alluded to last time. I was
No.
so close to getting glow sticks and wearing my bucket hat, so close, but I thought let's be professional and let's stick to the actual topic, which is tech. Probably quite good timing given that it's the summer holidays and our children will be wanting more. Let's be honest, we might be wanting them to want a little bit more. And just as a disclaimer before we start, or I guess just a comment to be aware of really, is if you have found yourself as a parent in the summer holidays leaning on tech a little bit more than you would do, please do not finish this episode feeling guilty. Please do not finish this episode thinking you've done something wrong, you've messed up, you've damaged your child, and so on and so on. That is absolutely not the point of this episode. And I would hope if you have been a loyal listener from the start that you will know that that is not what we're about. This isn't about blaming, shaming, pointing out people's deficits, for want of a better word. This is about us recognizing we are, what are we, week 3 for most people? The start of, well, as we're recording, this is probably going out a little bit later actually, but Mandie and I are recording this at the beginning of week 3 of the holidays for most people, depending on when your holidays started. And we're all hoping that they're going to end very soon. Sadly not though. But it is just recognizing that, yes, there will be more TV time, more cinema time, more tech time, more app time. And as much as you try to fill your day with lovely, busy, wonderful things, ultimately it is still the summer holidays. And we've all lent into that a little bit more. So I just want to say that now. Please, please, please don't get to the end of this episode and feel rubbish because that is not what we're about. But we did want to spend today thinking a little bit about why digital services, and when we say digital services, we do mean phones, tablets, laptops. I mean, even Netflix. My son pointed out to me over the weekend that even you can play games on Netflix now that link to your phone. I had no idea this was a thing. For me, Netflix is the thing I put on about 10:30 to fall asleep to. And I do recognise that's a bad sleep habit. Please don't come for me. But that's what I thought Netflix was, like a little bingey series, a movie here and there. This whole gaming thing has gone to a level that even I didn't know was available. But we wanted to talk today, didn't we, Mandie, about the nervous system, about how children with higher levels of cortisol, children with ACEs and trauma, and of course that little bit of neurospiciness, how tech really leans into that and the impact that that can have.
Yeah. And I think when we spoke about doing this episode, Laura, we were talking about how to normalize technology. There's a really strong narrative that is out there at the moment about the dangers of technology and the downsides of children becoming entertained solely by screens. I think that's the best way of summing it up.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that there is issues around that. I think it comes from a lot of us not realizing that the negative impact of our technical world that we live in now. But I also think we need to have that reframing of actually we can't turn back time. This
Hmm.
is how our lives are going to be. And I think we're going to grow and become more and more reliant on technology. Um, I have a robot Hoover, for goodness sake. Who would have said that that was a thing 40 years ago when I used to have to Hoover for my parents? Um, there is just so much that we all rely on. So it would make sense for our children to rely on it as well, because it is such
Yeah.
a huge part of our life. Let's be honest, you and I couldn't do this podcast without technology. We rely on it. I rely on it a lot for my work, and I know that you do too. It is part of our world. So I think we need to be aware of those downsides. Am I saying that it's okay for a 3-year-old to be pushed around in a pram with a tablet stuck in front of them? Absolutely not. I don't think that that is suitable or appropriate in any way whatsoever. However, there's no way that I can say to my soon to be teenage children, that's it, you're not having your smartphones anymore, because
Yeah.
it is part of our world. I'm not going to give up my smartphone. I'm not expecting my children to give up theirs.
Mm.
What we need to be focusing on more, if I can just get on my soapbox for a moment, is about educating
Yeah. Yeah.
children on how to use these things positively and safely.
Yeah.
Um, do I think it's okay for a teenager to have their phone with them all night messaging randos on Snapchat? No. Would I let them go down the park and speak to randos? I'm not going to let them do that in the safety of their own bedroom. But this is what I mean. There's fors and against. Yes, there's
Always.
games on
Always.
Netflix now. And actually, I've played some of those games with my children, and it can be a really cool games night. By the way, you can do Pictionary and Boggle.
Wow.
So
Oh, I'm there for that. I'm so
it's
there for that.
pretty cool, to be fair. Um, but yeah, it's about reframing this into, like you said, using it appropriately, using it wildly, and understanding the draw that it has to our children in particular, because it's a parenting podcast. I think yeah, let's reframe this. Let's get a bit of balance going on. And I think what really spurred me on to do this episode was, and I don't know if any of our listeners are in the same situation that I am in at the moment, or you are in, actually, Laura. My children's secondary school have now banned phones on
We have the
school
same.
premises.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I agree with a ban in school? Absolutely. Children are in school to grow their social skills, to do academic learning, to start navigating what the world of work may look like in those kind of environments. But my problem is, in my personal situation, I need to account for safety from my front door to the school front door. And we rely on technology to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that just doing this wide ban of things is actually going to get us anywhere. Maybe I'm talking out of turn again. Sorry, that's my own personal issues that I'm bringing to the podcast. Sorry about that.
Do you know, Mandy, it reminds me actually, when I was training as a social worker, one of my student placements was in a drug and alcohol support centre. And I was really surprised when I first went into I guess, work there for a few months, was the approach that they had. And it does depend on kind of the government agenda at the time. But when you work in an addiction service, you have one of two streams. You either have abstinence, and the work is done to literally cut people off cold turkey. You stop here, that's it. And then there's support around you for that. Or there's what they call harm min, so harm minimization. So using what you have, but in the safest possible way with a view to eventually cut back and stop. And when I was there, it was a harm min program. And I was really gobsmacked by that. It took me a long time to understand that. But as I spent more and more time with the clients that were there, understanding the programs that were offered, the support that was offered, by the time I left, it made a lot of sense. And if we think about things like phones, for example, being addictive, all the apps that we have, checking in on social media and so on and so on, I see people, and I will hold my hand up at times when I am very stressed and struggling with things, is I probably lean into that more, and I will come across as being addicted to checking this, checking that. If I'm very busy with work, I will be checking my emails all the time. I've got other apps on my phone that link to my work. I will be checking in on there. I will be creating things, with apps on my phone like Canva and things like that. So I definitely think that there is an addictive streak to that. And if we think about how would we cope with that, with other addictions in our life, like caffeine, like smoking, like vaping, like chocolate, for example. I'm not going to lie, Mandie, I have lent into the chocolate Magnum ice creams quite heavily in the last couple of weeks. My jeans do not like it. Luckily, it's too hot for jeans. But, the other addictions that we have, if somebody said to me, Laura, you can never have another bar of dairy milk again, I would be raging. And that would be the addictive bit of me. But if somebody said you can have half a bar a week, I would probably just about, this sounds ridiculous. It sounds awful as I'm actually saying the words out loud, but I could probably just about cope with that. And so I think there is that bit. I agree with you around how we manage it safely in a harm minimization way. And I think the other bit that we have to recognize when we're looking at the use of technology for our children who have struggled with consistency and predictability throughout their lives, who struggle with social relationships, who struggle with connection, struggle with a sense of belonging, struggle to self-regulate, there is an element of using technology that offers that. Because if you are playing a game, if you're playing Minecraft or if you're playing Roblox, there is a predictability that comes with that. There's a clear set of rules, that there is a clear parameter that our children can lean into and know, if I do this, this will happen.
Yeah.
If I build this tree or this farm in Minecraft, I know where the sheep will go, and I know where my tree is, and I know where the farmer will be. And I know if I invite my friend into this world, that might change. So there's a clear set of parameters there that perhaps they couldn't lean into in other spaces. The relationships you have online, whether you're playing solo, whether you play with a friend, hopefully, as you've said, not some rando that we don't know, we don't have to deal with that face-to-face relationship. Our children, they are able to kind of communicate through the messaging service, maybe through a headset, if you allow your children to do that, depending on their age and your house rules. The expectations in that place look and feel very different and are more manageable than perhaps those social relationships. If you're in a game with your friends, there's a sense of belonging that probably feels quite safe because you can duck out at any time.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And so there's so much there, isn't there? There's so much there that allows our children to lean into that perhaps we don't fully understand, because we as parents go, oh, God, they're playing Roblox again. Oh, I told them to come off half an hour ago. I told them it was dinner time. They know that they were supposed to be getting ready to go to the park. And all of these things that we kind of find really frustrating. You can probably hear it in my voice as we are in the depths of the summer holidays, and I can just hear FIFA tournaments going on above my head. But there is a sense of frustration for us as adults when we think, oh God, technology again, it's taking over our lives. But it is up to us as the adults to find the ways to minimize the negative impacts whilst being reflective about the positives this does bring to our children. And then I guess taking a further step back to think, how can I replicate that in other ways? And I love what you just said, Mandie, about playing some of those games together, using the Netflix stuff together. Like I said, this was literally, I was yesterday years old when I found out that this was a thing. But it sounds awesome. One of my boys is having a sleepover here tonight. My other son is going to a sleepover somewhere else. I thought I'd be one child down. I seem to have gained another. Hey ho, it's the holidays. But what I can now do is make a suggestion that those 13, 14-year-olds go into the lounge where I can have a listen, where I can see through my glass door as to what's going on and know that they're having technology fun, but I know that there's some containment there.
Yeah,
I feel like
absolutely.
I've waffled a bit. Has any of that made any sense whatsoever?
So much sense, so much sense. And I actually, one thing that you said really did resonate with me, which was the communicating, uh, internet cyber world.
Mm, mm.
If if you think of it from a traumatized child's point of view who really struggle, or neurodiverse, a child who really struggles with those face-to-face communications, really struggles to pick up on those social cues, is really high with anxiety, has that internal working model, that little voice in their head that tells them what a bad person they are and how nobody's going to like them and nobody's going to find them attractive if they're that old, or be able to have anything in common with them. They can create this persona online of
Hmm.
whoever
Hmm.
they want to be. And because it's online, they can dip in and dip out of it.
Sure,
So I've
sure.
supported parents before who had a child who school refuser, just could not cope with any kind of face-to-face social interactions outside the house, but sparked up a relationship with a girl in Canada. And they were talking
Wow.
about going on holiday, and the parent was absolutely freaking out about the thought of this girl's going to come over and she's been sold this image of my son, and now she's going to come out and it's all going to go wrong. And then I've got to pick up the pieces.
Mm,
But I think, will it even get to that point? I think
of
he
course.
was so anxious that the likelihood of them even getting to a point where she was going to come over and he was going to stick to it was so remote, because
Yeah,
just that would freak him out. That
sure.
distance, is it ideal? No. Is it what we want for our children? Possibly not.
Mm,
But it is a way of them learning those social skills, as long as we can engage or monitor or show interest in it and they can allow that to happen. We can still be that safe parent down the park, making sure
yeah,
they don't go and speak to strangers,
yeah,
but we're also allowing them that little bit of freedom that they can't get in touch with through face-to-face normal
yeah, yeah.
society, if that makes any sense.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think just again, just putting in another caveat for those people that are listening, Mandy and I are not encouraging you to allow your children to spend more time, on these things. We're not saying don't manage it, don't monitor it, don't look to reduce it if you do think, if you're worried about the amount of time. What we're saying is there is balance and there is another angle in which to view this. And again, if I go back to my kind of abstinence versus harm min, if we take away all tech from children now, they're going to be so behind later on, socially, first of all, because you can bet your bottom dollar that the other 29 children in their class, parents aren't going to be doing this.
Hmm.
That's just not going to happen. And for a lot of families, actually, that use of tech is really helpful and it is a part of their everyday life. And for lots of families, it's less of a concern. I'm not going to say it's not a concern because I think that's too naive and that's too broad, but certainly less of a concern than perhaps a child with trauma and also neurospiciness. But I think we have to recognize that the harm min feels like the more appropriate approach because, when our children are big grown-ups in the big wide world, the likelihood is, let's be honest, that they will be using technology in some way, shape or form, and they're going to have to learn how to do a bunch of stuff. And technology is this ever-changing, ever-evolving techno world that, like I said, I've used Netflix for years. I didn't know you could play games on there till yesterday. I mean, all right, call me behind, call me an old bird if you want to, but I just did not know that this was a thing. There are apps on my phone that I genuinely have never tapped on because I don't know what they do, because I just use the things that I know I need. to use. My children have put things on my phone to help me. I've no idea what they're doing to help me, but apparently they're helpful, So I think we have to just be really mindful of, do we want to stop this, or do we want to manage it in the best possible way? And for every family, for every child, only you can decide what is the best possible way for your household. We can't sit here and do a whole podcast about you should have, be on a tablet from this time to this time, or only have this many apps on your phone, or only allow a laptop for schoolwork, or whatever. We're not here to do that. We would never do that, because we don't know what your home looks like, and we're just not those people. But this is not that kind of podcast. But we have to be mindful of what does work in the safest possible way. And so I think if we lean into the question of, how do I stop this? How am I preventing this from happening? You're probably going down a rabbit hole where you're going to be banging your head a lot, because it just doesn't work from my end.
I think, to sum it up, is technology isn't the enemy. It's often meeting a need. And our job as parents is to understand what that need is. So, okay, you have a child who is obsessed with playing driving games on the Xbox. Okay, that's fine. What is that need about? Is it that stimulation of the bright lights, the fast moving? Is it the feel of satisfaction when they pass a level, with these platform games? If it's social media based things, there is a ban coming in, isn't there, for social media to be banned to under 16s? And I agree with that. I think that social media can open a lot of children up to a lot of negative comments, which have always happened. Again, let's reframe this. People being nasty, people saying unkind things has always happened. I had it when I was at school. You're lovely, but I'm sure you experienced some of it when you were at school. But the difference was, when I left school, I didn't see that person again until I went back into school. So I had that break from them. What happens with this social media and WhatsApp and messages is that person gets that child's number, and they continue those nasty comments, possibly in group chats, or getting a group together to then say horrible things about one child. That's not okay. And we do need to make a stand with that. And we do need to try and stop that. So my children don't have access to social media until they're 16. And when they do have access to social media, I do a lot of educating with them. A little bit like we've spoken before on this pod about doing those pre-teaching phases. When we go out with our children for the day, we pre-teach them where we're going to go, what it's going to look like, how long we're going to be there, what we're having to eat, what we're having to drink. We do the same pre-teaching when it comes to using social media, because then the algorithms will become hopefully more positive. And then the likelihood of them getting sucked into that negativity can be reduced. We can't just give them a phone, put them up on Snapchat and expect everything to be okay. We've got to do that pre-teaching stage with our children, more so than with securely attached children.
Definitely. Yeah, the pre-teaching is huge, isn't it? And I think the more we pre-teach, the more we can then start to try and understand the need beneath the behaviour. If we talk about behaviour being communication, the behaviour of reaching for tech, using tech, whether it's gaming, social media, whatever, there's a need beneath that, isn't there? And I think if we can figure out what that need is, are they overwhelmed and need to find something that feels more calm and that they can control? I was just thinking about the driving game, Mandie. Is that about control? I could control the steering wheel, I can control the speed, the pace, the angles, whether I win or not. Do I go up or down a level? There's an element of control in there, and needing to feel some power and control may well come from gaming. Are they feeling very anxious and they need to lean into something that feels more contained and more comfortable in a Minecraft world, in a Roblox world? Is that what they're looking for? If they've had a bad day at school with some peers and they can go into a world either on their own or with perhaps some other friends or family, does that feel better in terms of their social connection? So if we need to always come back to what's the need beneath the behaviour that's driving the use of the technology. And I think once we can understand more of that, we can probably have more clearer boundaries around what that use is going to look like. Mandy, can I ask a little bit about the boundaries that you have around the use of tech in your home? Because
Um,
it's probably very different to mine, understandably.
I am so strict. It's
Mm,
unbelievable, to the
mm,
point where I expect a lot of people will be going, "Oh my God, she's such a tyrant," and they will turn this episode off. Please don't stick with me. Um, so as I've said, no, my children don't have access to social media until they're 16. Um, my eldest son was obsessed with getting Snap,
right.
which just freaked me out completely because I don't know a lot about Snapchat. I don't understand a lot about Snapchat. There's a lot of
Mm,
scary stories about Snapchat. So I had to do a bit of my own research, but also I wanted him to feel that he could fit in with his peer group. So if I said no, let's be honest, he was going to do it anyway, but he would have done, he would have driven it underground.
sure.
So you've got, I felt I was in a no-win situation, really. I needed to allow him access when I didn't really want him to have it, but then I had to make sure that there was as much safety around that as possible. So we have timers on all of our
Mhm, mhm.
electronic gadgets. Um, so screen time is restricted. Um, their children can't download anything on their phones or tablet without my husband, who is an IT security expert. So I let him deal with a lot of it. Um,
Excellent.
but they have to ask for his permission, and he will either say yes or no once he's checked out what they're trying to download. We use some parental safety software as well. So we've used something called Custodio, and I think there's like a Google Family link thing.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm really expert in this area. Um,
We should
but
have got him on instead to
yeah, yeah,
us
yeah,
because you're
yeah,
fluffing it.
probably. Um, but that allows him to remotely go onto their phone. So if they, heaven forbid, they did a search on Google on their phones of ladies with big boobies,
Hmm.
that would then flag up on my husband's
Sure.
phone. He would be able to check what they were trying to look at and make
Hmm.
sure that the restrictions were in place.
Yeah.
He can also read their messages. So if my child was to sit on the sofa of an evening and not quite feel like they were comfortable, if they had bigger anxiety, and I knew that they'd been spending time on their phone messaging people, we
Hmm.
could have a look at their phones and see what messages they've sent
Yeah.
without having to then put them in a position of show me your phone. I need to read your messages, doing all that sort of stuff. He can also block people
Yeah.
remotely. So if there
Excellent.
is any negativity from a group of friends or a friend who can turn quite spiteful or
Mm,
say some unkind things, we can block them. We've made that choice. Again, we've put that safety net around them. We're
exactly.
not expecting them to take full responsibility for everything that they do.
Yeah.
Um, I don't allow any screens apart from TV after we've had dinner.
Yeah.
Um, That's just because I think my children need that extended wind down time because they're so hypervigilant in so many different areas. That
Sure.
stimulation
Sure.
of screens and gaming, and in my experience, it just hasn't worked in my
Mm,
situation. So yeah, no screens apart from TV um after dinner. Um we do play games together. We play the games on Netflix, Pictionary, absolute scream. Um We'll watch YouTube clips together. My son is learning how to do tricks on a yo-yo at the moment. It's a joy. So we're looking at YouTube clips together. Um,
yeah.
what that does is it opens the door a little bit to me showing an interest in what he's interested in.
Yeah.
I've just, as you know, recently bought a drum kit for my house. I'm not quite sure what I'm thinking. Maybe
I
it's the
don't
summer
know what
holidays
you were thinking, but
effect.
I can't wait to hear more.
So we're doing, beginner drummer lessons on YouTube. Again, we're using technology, but we're using it as a positive. I'm
Yeah,
not just saying to my kids, oh, you can watch YouTube, you can watch whatever you want for an hour. I'm there with them. I'm partaking with them in these
mm,
things. I'm showing an interest. It's creating a bit of a bond and a bit of an attachment between us, actually.
yeah,
And that's what I want to get to. I want to be able to see the world truly through my children's eyes. So I need to be engaged with what activity they are doing with these screens and technology.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it looks really different to mine. Mandie, I just wanted to go back to a point you made as you started talking about that, saying that you couldn't win in that situation with your older son wanting Snap and using social media and stuff. And I was thinking as you said it, what would the win be in that situation? And the win was that you kept him as safe as possible. The win was always going to be his safety. And so you did win. You may not have won in the way that you initially wanted to win, but the win ultimately was the safety for him. And I think that's something that maybe lots of our listeners can take away. But I was just thinking about the difference in your home to mine with that. You know, my children are birth children. They're securely attached. They are, as far as I'm aware, neurotypical. That might be debatable on some of their more hormonal teenage days. They're just coming up 14 and 16. They're big lads as well. You know, my almost 16-year-old is just shy of 6 foot. He wears size 11 and a half football boots now. He's in men's medium t-shirts already. He's a big lad. His brother's not far behind him. But our tech rules look very different. They do have some social media. They're not interested in using all of it. They have like a favorite, a favorite one or two apps, usually Snap. They're in a few WhatsApp groups for the football teams that they're in. You know, those boys will be in that group and they'll be able to chat about an upcoming game, about who's coming to training or not, about whether the referee really was a you-know-what during that particular game. They'll play a few games, but the difficulty that we have with that is that a lot of their homework is done through an app. They have an app for maths, for English, for science, for languages. And we have a rule that if you are doing a GCSE language, which they both are, they have to do extra through Duolingo.
Oh, okay.
So they both have that on their phones. I'm not sure if Duolingo is classed as social media or not, but it's another app that they're using. So they do have a relatively free rein on the use of their phones, but they also have set times where they have to use their laptop for other pieces of schoolwork, to complete other tasks, to obviously write and type stuff. We don't have phones at the table for any meal. They might try and sneak it into their pocket, particularly when the World Cup was on and they were trying to figure out games or the lineups for the teams. But it's no phones when we're eating. And we have a cut-off point for all tech other than TV in the evenings. Because of their football training times and other tasks that they do. They both do Duke of Edinburgh. You know, sometimes they might be doing homework a bit later rather than straight after school. And so again, their phones would be with them for a bit longer. But there's a cut-off time for the Xbox or PS, for their phones, for their laptops. We don't have tablets really anymore. And then it's just TV for that last hour before they wind down. So, but equally when they're out and about, I will be checking in with them regularly, and we have a tracking app. So if they say they're going to a friend's house, I can see they're at a friend's house. If they say they're going to the cinema, if they're going out for, a McDonald's or something, then I can always see where they are as well. But I do have, I guess, the convenience, the luxury of knowing my children are securely attached, of knowing that, if something went wrong when they were out, they would come straight to me and talk to me, even if they've come in later than planned, that they would be able to do that, because their cortisol levels and their responses to social situations would look very different to perhaps your children or to some of our listeners. So this is what I'm saying. We can't give specific advice about these things, about what you should do or what you shouldn't do. It's so unique to your family. But equally, if one of my children were then not doing their homework or getting bad results or weren't sleeping very well, they know that there would be an adjustment for a period of time to see what that change was like.
And I think there are things that we can put in place as parents, again, to keep those boundaries in place, to keep our children feeling this sense of being looked after, especially in my situation where, my children haven't always had that feeling of being kept safe, of being looked after and nurtured. And technology can be so addictive, as we've
Mhm.
already said, and you
Mhm.
so eloquently explained it. Um, they're not going to come off their Xbox when I say, "It's dinner time, you need to come off
Mhm.
now."
Mhm.
So we've put timers in place to
Yeah.
stop that, but I'm in the middle of a game, I just want another 5 minutes. If it's the timer that turns it off, that's really hard for you, and I can do
Sure.
that keeping that connection with
Mhm.
them, that emotional tie to them of, I can see that's really hard for you,
Yeah.
but it is what it is, and there'll always be tomorrow, and why don't we do this together now? And, you know,
Yeah.
do my children always react positively to it? No, but that doesn't mean I don't put it in place still. We've
Mhm.
got to keep
Mhm.
those boundaries in line, and we've got to make sure that we're emotionally available to keep that connection with them as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose my top tip would be to put timers in place to take away that personal "you've stopped me"
Yeah. Yeah.
reaction. "Oh my God, I was just in the middle."
Yeah.
'Cause that's when you then get triggered as a parent, because obviously they've got to come off because you're doing things. They then escalate, you escalate, and then before we know it, everyone's dysregulated and it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just having timers on or having restrictions put in place. And if you don't know how to do it, use YouTube. They'll show you how to do it. Um,
Absolutely. Use the tech to inform the tech. Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking about what, if I had to offer a top tip, what would it be, Mandie? And I really like the use of timers and things to take away the personal bit about, well, you stopped me. I think that's a good one. I think the other bit for me, and I wish I practiced what I preached, and maybe this will encourage me now that I've put it out into the big wide world, is role modeling as adults our own use of tech. Because like I said, if I'm stressed or I know I've got a lot on, I struggle to put my phone down. I am checking things constantly. I'm making notes. I'm go back and revisit things. I'm constantly looking at my work emails and my work diary on my phone, even if I haven't been at my laptop for 3 or 4 hours. I'm so guilty of doing this. And then I'll check the weather app for the next day as to what time I can walk the dog. And then I'll check the gym times and do I want to book in at this time? And then I'll have a quick whiz through Insta, and that quick whiz ends up being 20 minutes and I'm not getting that time of my life back again, and on all of these things. And I think there is something about the onus on us as adults is to model the good use of tech. And I think you hit the nail on the head when it's, if she's going to be on YouTube, then it is to learn to play the drums, or it's to learn a new skill, or to understand something that's going on in the world. Yeah, so I think it's what are we demonstrating to our children? We role model so much for our children, don't we? Regulation, relationships, connection, how to be a family, and all of these things. But we can't let that slip with tech, and we can't just go, oh, our children are addicted because they want to be gaming all the time. We've already touched on the fact that this is not addiction. This is potentially meeting another need, but we have to put an onus on ourselves in a slightly different way. And if we're worried about our children always being online, then we need to come offline as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
If we want to have that sneaky flick through Insta, do it when they're in bed.
Yeah.
Do it in
Yeah.
your lunch break when they're at school. And I know that's maybe not there for people in the holidays at the moment, but I've now set timers on my phone and I don't always adhere to them. Again, I need to practice what I preach, but I've got a 1 hour social media timer on my phone. So if I've spent a lot of time WhatsApping someone that morning, and then I've had a quick flick through Insta, it's probably run out by 2 o'clock. Now I can override it, and sometimes I do. Again, because sometimes I'll be WhatsApping clients for stuff, so sometimes I have to do that. But I'm really trying to make sure I don't do that. And I've also got a shutdown on my phone from 9 p.m. It's on a do not disturb, in the hope that it will stop me from faffing about with stuff, going down my Instagram rabbit hole of stuff that's just really not important to me in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, but
Yeah.
also allowing my own brain to switch off, because again, that's role modeling for the children.
And I think during this time in the holidays, um, it could be a really good opportunity. Yes, you're right. Those little 5-10 minute breaks that we usually have in a normal school day to just jump on and have a quick Facebook scroll or an Insta
Yeah,
scroll,
yeah.
they've gone. But there's nothing stopping you from saying, instead of going on social media and skimming through and doom scrolling, what I'm
Mm,
going to do is I'm going to get the cards out and I'm going to have a quick game of, I don't know, Jack out of town or Snap or something really simple that you can do with your children.
yeah.
We've said it loads and loads of times. You don't have to dedicate every minute of every day to
Hmm.
entertaining your children.
Hmm.
But actually, why not get snakes and ladders out? Have a game of snakes and ladders instead of doom scrolling. If especially my daughter is having a wobbly day, if something's happened and I can just see that she's struggling a little bit, we'll snuggle on the sofa, we'll put YouTube on and we'll watch cute cat videos or, we'll do that silliness. But
Hmm.
again,
Hmm.
we're doing it together. It's
Yeah.
about keeping that connection. How can you, if you do have a child in your house who's really screen obsessed, how can you adapt that obsessiveness to actually connection time? I've sat for hours and hours and watched a child play Minecraft. I have no idea about Minecraft. I have no
Same.
interest in Minecraft. I
No.
don't know how to play Minecraft. The music is really, really irritating. And then the little characters go along going, oh, and I don't get it. I don't get it. But he loved it. And he loved the fact that I would sit there with him
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
feign interest in what he was doing
Yeah.
whilst I was sat with a cup of tea. It really didn't break me. It wasn't the worst thing that I ever had to put up with. Sometimes we've just got to make sacrifices so that we can be there
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mandie, I think we have done a long time using our tech to talk about tech. So tell me, what's your takeaway from today? Your takeaway tech?
My tech takeaway, I think, would be treating technology as you do any other activity with your children. You
Good
have
one.
to take ownership of it to ensure that you can keep your children as safe as possible, however that looks within your home. And
Yeah.
if we have any listeners who are like, but I just don't know how I can do that. She was talking about putting limits on. I don't know how to do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Reach out, rootsresilience@outlook.com. And we will do our best to help you or point you in the right direction. Always reach out to the Centre of Excellence in Child Trauma.
Yeah.
There's lots of top tips and information and help with technology. I know that Sarah Naish has really been strident in making sure we keep our children safe when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
Um, there are things out there to help you. Again, you are not trying to do all of this on your own, but keep those boundaries, take ownership, I
Yeah.
think. What
Absolutely.
about you, Laura? What's your takeaway for today?
Yeah, I think for me, it is working out what need the technology is meeting. Yes, we can use tech for fun. Gaming is always fun. But if you are worried about your children always wanting to be on tech or feeling like you're not really managing it particularly well, what need needs to be met? What is technology offering them? And it's not because you're not offering it. Again, this is not about pointing a finger and saying what is or isn't working. But, is it connection? Is it control? Is it social time? And we're not necessarily pulling away from any of that, but we're looking at, can we meet it in a different way so that the technology becomes kind of a secondary thing and not the primary thing? I think that's the bit for me today.
Yeah. It's such a it's such a big topic. We could talk for hours on this. I'm sure
Definitely.
my mind is
And I'm
just,
sure we will. I think we'll probably do another session when the ban comes in. I think that will probably be a good timely session to think about children's reactions to that, because for some families, that's going to have a massive impact if you've got a child who was using certain things that now can't and they're struggling. My household is probably going to be in a position when one of my children can have and the other one can't. So then we've got the whole sibling rivalry thing that may well be apparent in some of the homes of the people listening. So maybe that's something we can come back to when that's in place.
and if there's, if this has raised any questions for you, or if you've got any comments that you feel strongly about, then please do share them with us. Obviously, as with every time we sit down and talk, this is just our opinion. We're not, like Laura's already said multiple times, we're not here to tell you this is what you should be doing and this is how it should be set up. We're just talking about our opinions and how things look in our own homes. It sounds as if it's a really easy breezy time for me, and I know that that is not always the case. This is a massive topic for many children who have actually been parented by technology some of the time. In my
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, children are being babysat with CBeebies on a tablet, or they're being exposed to gaming that is not age appropriate. It's not okay for a 6-year-old to be playing Call of Duty. Um, but these things happen, and I think when we're looking after traumatized children in particular, they may have had those experiences before and they don't understand why they're not allowed to do that now. And it's hard. It's hard when you're putting those boundaries in. So please don't feel you've got to do it on your own. Reach out. We're here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, please do get in touch if you can. But otherwise, we are going to love you and leave you today. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with another episode very soon. Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so
Take
much,
care.
guys. Cheers. Bye.